Welcome to your New York City crime and fire news video for the week of July 12th, 2021. So, the common theme that's been going on lately has been hit and runs and shootings. And sadly, yet again, more hit and runs have gotten reported in the past week, including, sadly, somewhere here in Queens. And I will get into that later on in this video. But we have to sadly lead off with the fire news, and in this week's fire news, we have an unfortunate tragedy we need to talk about here in Queens, where a 9-year-old boy was killed in a 2-alarm fire. So let's get into the details. A 9-year-old boy tragically has passed away, and 3 others were injured in a 2-alarm house fire in Queens on July 11th. FDNY sources said the blaze broke out at 6:25 a.m. on July 11th inside adjoining residences at 69-33 and 69-37 Hillmeyer Avenue in Irvine. So, this is pretty much the area around the Rockaways, if you want it to be explained in a simpler way. More than 100 firefighters and 20 FDNY units responded to the blaze, along with officers from the 100 precinct and EMS units. And trust me, I could go on with the list from the Firewire, but again, that'll just make this video even too long. While searching for the residence for victims, law enforcement sources reported firefighters found the 9-year-old victim with burnt and smoke inhalation. Sadly, the victim was taken to St. John's Episcopal Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The NYPD have withheld the boy's identity pending family notification. 3 other victims found inside the burning home were also taken to the same hospital and are recovering from their injuries, FDNY sources said. Firefighters brought the blaze under control at 7:28 later in the morning. The Marshals unit is looking into the cause of the fire. In a post to its Twitter account, the Uniformed Firefighters Association, UFA for short, which represents firefighters, reported that rescue teams were met with heavily cluttered conditions, which made it extremely difficult to navigate the engulfed home. The UFA added, "Our thoughts and prayers are with the young man's family, as this is a situation that no one ever wants to go through." So, again, just an awful story, and I had first found this out from the Firewire yesterday morning, and there were more details, and then I found out from them what happened, and just very, very awful. Very, very awful. Next up, we're going to go to an incident in the Bronx, in a 3-alarm fire that happened up there. 8 firefighters were injured in this separate incident. A fire erupted within an apartment complex located at 717 Costa Street in the Bronx on Tuesday, July 7th. Oh, my bad. Tuesday, July 6th. Excuse me. When FDNY responded at around 12:30 p.m., according to fire officials, the blaze quickly escalated to a 3-alarm fire. 33 units of the fire department and approximately 140 firefighters were called in to provide assistance. It took nearly an hour and a half to get the scene under control, according to sources. In total, 8 firefighters suffered minor injuries while battling the blaze. So, think about this for a second. This fire happened on Tuesday. And the reason why I'm bringing the important detail about this is because we got another crime story that I must have missed out on. I will definitely read that at the end of the... I'll get over here. But the important thing is, it was very hot on Tuesday. It was 90 plus degrees on Tuesday. So, makes it very difficult to battle a fire as it is. That you're dealing with extreme heat in a building, and outside you can't even cool down because it's 90 plus degrees and the real feels in the hundreds. Yeah, and there's the shattered glass of the building. Yeah, okay. There we go. So we'll get to a separate Bronx Times thing later on. So let's just check FDNY alerts on Twitter, because again, I've recently found out about their their account, and I'll take a look at the FireWire to see if any other separate fires were not mentioned. So here we go. There was a fire that happened on Bruckner Boulevard yesterday, 1591, multiple dwelling. So they said it might have been a compactor involved. Right, and then yesterday alerts did send out the notification about the fire on Hillmeyer. And look at this, there was a transportation fire on the BQE on Sunday. Wow. But if you want more specifics, the FireWire is more specifics. Look at that. Tommy O'Shea celebrates 40 years on the force. Look at that. Oh, and then look at this. Serious multi-vehicle accident on the Triborough Bridge. Wrong-way driver head-on into an NYPD vehicle on the ramp to Randall's Island. Wow. You just cannot make this stuff up, folks. This is just unbelievable. Really. And then look at this. There was another multi-vehicle yesterday. Henry Hudson Parkway south of the George Washington Bridge. People pinned into an overturned automobile. All southbound traffic on the Henry Hudson was stopped. So I bet there were probably heavy delays on the Henry Hudson Bridge leaving Riverdale. So here's the specifics on what happened on the BQE. According to the FireWire, they say that a fully involved tractor trailer was involved in the accident on the BQE, and this was near Hamilton Avenue. Okay, so that's more specifics. I'm not going to get into any more incidents, but you get the idea. Okay, so now we are going to go on to the pandemic of shootings. As bad enough as we're trying to end one pandemic, we're now entering another pandemic of gun violence. And as you know, the federal government now wants to get involved. So it's very interesting how in Washington they're paying attention to what's going on, especially in our fair city, as this new pandemic of gun violence takes another life as a 13-year-old was killed in the Bronx. So we'll get into that. Wow, so it's 2 kids that were shot? Because Channel 4 was saying it was only 1 kid that was shot. Alright, well, let's move on. 2 teenagers, including a 13-year-old boy, were gunned down Sunday in separate shootings on the streets of the Bronx. Police say that Sharon Elliott, 13, of Southern Boulevard, was fatally shot in front of an apartment building at 743 East 187th Street in Belmont at 3:18 p.m. According to law enforcement sources, an unidentified shooter walked up to Elliott and opened fire on him. The motive for the shooting remains unknown, but sources familiar with the investigation stated that Elliott appeared to be the intended target. Officers from the 48th Precinct, in responding to a 911 call about the shooting, found Elliott with gunshot wounds to his chest and legs. EMS units rushed the youngster to St. Barnabas Hospital, where sadly the victim was pronounced dead. So far, no arrests have been made in the ongoing investigation. Detectives have released a description of the shooter. Police describe him as a man in a burgundy sweatshirt, light-colored pants, and black sneakers who fled the scene inside a black sedan. About 8 hours later, officers in the Bronx responded to a second deadly shooting involving a teenager at the corner of East 178th Street and Valentine Avenue. At 11:36 p.m. the same day, members of the 46th Precinct found Ramon Gilmernado, 16, of Crotona Parkway, shot multiple times in the head and chest at the location. Law enforcement sources said that several men riding on scooters rode up to the location and opened fire on the teenager. Seconds later, the suspects rode away northbound along Valentine Avenue. Sadly, yet again, another victim was taken of gun violence as this victim was rushed to St. Barnabas Hospital, where this victim was pronounced dead. Police sources said Gil Murnado was known to the NYPD as being affiliated with a local gang and had prior arrest history. There is no motive of this shooting. And I will mention that this is on the heels of the weekend that the NYPD starts the summer youth program for children on Saturday nights. On the heels of the same weekend that's starting. Meanwhile, in Queens, detectives are searching for a drive-by killer who gunned down a 24-year-old male victim as he was sitting in his car on July 11th. Dejon Brown of Henderson Avenue took multiple bullets out its body as it sat inside a Nissan Maxima at the corner of 200th Street and 111th Avenue in Hollis at 8:15 p.m. on July 11th. According to police, the unknown shooter rolled up to Brown's vehicle inside a black SUV and opened fire. Within seconds, the shooter and vehicle sped away from the scene, heading southbound on 200th Street. Officers from the 113 precinct discovered that wounded Brown while responding to a 911 call about the shooting. EMS units rushed him to Jamaica Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Police sources said that Brown was also affiliated with a local gang and had 14 prior arrests. Detectives are now investigating the shooting as a possible gang-related homicide. No arrests have been made in the case in Hollis. Alright, so here's what we know. Anyone with information regarding any of the shootings that I just mentioned in the Bronx and Queens can call the Crime Stoppers hotline at 1-800-577-TIPS-8477. In Espanol, 888-577-4782, which is pista. You can also go online to www.nypdcrimestoppers.com or on Twitter at NYPDTips. All calls and messages are kept confidential. Now we move on to a separate incident that happened in Brooklyn. And this is going to be our last shooting that I will hopefully have to bring up in this video. Gunman shot dead by cops in Bushwick after a liquor store shootout. Police on Thursday night, July 8th, shot and killed a gunman who said they had shot 3 people at a Bushwick liquor store just minutes before. Uniformed members of the police department public safety unit were patrolling near the intersection of Halsey Street and Wilson Avenue by Irving Square Park at around 10:30 p.m. when they heard gunfire. NYPD Chief of Patrol Juanita Williams said at a press conference following the shooting. The officers headed a few blocks south of the intersection to Broadway, Ryan, and Spirits when they encountered 3 people who had been shot. Surrounded by shattered glass from the blown-out storefront, the victims told officers that the gunman had fled the scene on foot, turning west onto Wilson Avenue. Officers immediately gave chase, said Holmes, adding the body camera footage reviewed by the department shows the responding cops approached the alleged gunman who crouched on the sidewalk in front of a nearby home halfway down the block and demanded he drop his firearm. They observed a man holding a firearm in his left hand and gave commands for the man to drop the gun, Holmes said. The man did not comply and instead raised the firearm in the direction of the officers. The officers then shot the suspect where he was hit by at least one of their bullets. He was taken to Wyckoff Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Holmes said the cops involved in the shooting were taken to an area hospital for observation. The 3 victims who were shot on Halsey Street were also being treated at area hospitals. Police have not yet released the identities of the victim. At least one firearm belonging to the suspect was recovered at the scene, and the investigation remains active and ongoing by the forced investigation with conjunction with the Detective Bureau. One witness said she was stunned by the gun down. Stacy Clark said, "That liquor store is always calm. I am surprised that something would happen there." And as you can see, that is the firearm that was recovered at the scene. So now we move on to another pandemic, and that is the pandemic of impatient drivers who are trying to get back out on the road after we've all been in quarantine. And we have a couple incidents we need to get into. I have 2 articles relating to this. First up, let's go to Brooklyn in the Kensington section. Speeding driver with fake police lights crashes into, believe it or not, an NYPD car. So there is karma right there. There is a bunch of karma right there. A speeding driver behind the wheel of a Ford SUV crashed into a cop car in Kensington on Thursday, July 8th, sending 3 people to the hospital and the driver to the slammer. The SUV driver, who police identified as a 29-year-old male named Moshe Cohen of Midwood, was blazing southbound on Coney Island Avenue at 7:20 p.m. while displaying sirens and red and blue lights common on unmarked police cars, per video of the incident. So we do have a video of the incident. Look at that. A spokesperson told the Brooklyn paper that the vehicle was not a police car and that the sirens and flashing lights were attached to the car illegally. Video shows Cohen driving between lanes of traffic at high speeds, including on the wrong side of the road, before reaching the intersection of Foster Avenue, where other drivers were waiting for a red light. Failing to stop, Cohen sped through the intersection and collided with an NYPD patrol car, which had active lights and sirens as the cops were responding to a call near Foster Avenue. You just cannot make this stuff up. You just can't. You just can't. The impact severely damaged both vehicles and caused the police car to collide with a nearby Toyota. Cohen's car ended up smashing into a traffic light pole, which then collapsed. Okay, so let's try to play the video on mute. Video of the scene shows Cohen lying on the ground after the crash, bloodied and in pain. And as you can tell, in the police vehicle, this appears to be a Ford Fusion, you could tell the airbag definitely went out. On the driver's side airbag. Yeah, this definitely looks like a very bad incident. EMS workers took the drivers of all 3 impacted vehicles, Cohen, a 28-year-old police officer, and a 32-year-old Toyota driver, to Maimonides Medical Center with non-life-threatening injuries, an NYPD spokesperson said. There you go. I mean, just cannot make this stuff up. Just can't. Let's see. Is there... Let's take a look at this for a second. Yeah, see that? This is it right here. And it appears that's the SUV. Yep. And apparently it looks like we do have a video of the accident. So here it is. Oh, that's definitely a bad accident right there. Watch this one more time. I mean, think about it. The SUV driver's in the wrong because literally he was at a red light. Okay, so let's see. Police arrested Cohen and slapped him with a litany of charges, including reckless driving, reckless endangerment, speeding violations, unauthorized emergency covered lights, failing to obey traffic signals, and license plate violation. So, we'll get into the next incident right now. 2 people dead in separate hit and runs in Manhattan and Queens. So let's get into this. The NYPD is investigating the deaths of 2 people who were killed in separate hit and runs in Manhattan and Queens. At 11:03 p.m. on July 8th, officers responded to a 911 call regarding a motor vehicle collision involving a bicyclist, the front of in the front. Oh, this is a terrible typo. Okay, so this happened on Houston Street, 309 East Houston Street in the Lower East Side. Upon their arrival, officers found 24-year-old Barack Yola of West 17th Street lying on the road next to an e-bike with trauma to his body. An investigation found that Ola was attempting to cross the street when he was struck by a black Subaru Outback traveling eastbound on East Houston Street. The vehicle did not remain at the scene. It was last seen driving northbound on the FDR Drive. EMS rushed Ola to New York City Health and Hospital's Bellevue, where he was pronounced dead. Less than 2 hours later, at 12:44 a.m. on July 9th, the NYPD responded to a 911 call regarding a pedestrian struck at 70th Street and Elliott Avenue at the border of Maspeth and Middle Village in Queens. Upon their arrival, police said 67-year-old Caroline Connors of 69th Lane was lying in the roadway with severe trauma. An investigation found that Connors was standing in the road in front of 69-82 Elliott Avenue when she was struck by an unknown sedan that was traveling eastbound on Elliott Avenue. Connors was knocked into the roadway and is subsequently hit by an MTA bus that was also heading eastbound on Elliott Avenue. Both the sedan and the bus kept driving without stopping. EMS rushed the location and declared Connors dead at the scene. At this time, it has not been determined why or how far in the road Connors was at the time she was hit, according to a police spokesperson. There is ongoing investigations as no arrests have been made in either incident. Okay, so let's get into other incidents we're going to talk about. Let me just get my water for a second. Okay, so first up, 5 sought for attacking a food truck worker near Washington Square Park. Police need the public's help in finding a group of 5 assailants who knocked a food truck worker near Washington Square Park in June. The NYPD released images of the incident that took place on June 27th, which occurred at 10:22 p.m. near the corner of 5th Avenue and Washington Square North in Greenwich Village. According to law enforcement sources, the suspects got into a verbal dispute with the 65-year-old man working at his food truck over the price of the food he sold. Things escalated further, authorities said, when one of the attackers attempted to replace the American flag on his food truck with a pride flag. Seconds later, police reported the 5 perps began shoving the food truck worker and punched him in the face. They also hurled bottles at him before fleeing in an unknown direction. Officers from the 6th Precinct responded to the attack. Paramedics took the victim to Bellevue Hospital for treatment of facial injuries and a head lacerations. There is a collage of suspects who may have been involved in this incident. So here's a good look at each suspect right here. As you can see, you could definitely tell that this was Washington Square Park, because that's the famous arch that's right there at Washington Square Park. So no, we'll get to Queens after. Because I gotta get to this story. Then we'll move on to news from Queens. Teen stabs Uber driver in Westchester. 2 males arrested on gun charges from the Bronx. So that's why we're going to bring up the story. 2 men from the Bronx have been arrested in connection with the stabbing of an Uber driver in New Rochelle on Friday, July 2nd. At approximately 2:25 p.m., New Rochelle police were called to North Avenue and Huguenot Street on a report of a stabbing of an Uber driver. An Uber driver had picked up 5 passengers, 3 males and 2 females, at New Rock City Entertainment Complex in downtown New Rochelle. A short way into the trip, a verbal argument took place between the Uber driver and one of the female passengers, identified as a juvenile. According to police, the driver stopped the Uber to discharge the passengers. However, the dispute became physical when the other female passenger, also a juvenile, stabbed the driver in the chest 2 times. So again, I don't know who doesn't proofread these articles. The 5 passengers fled on foot but were detained by police. 2 males were arrested while police found illegal firearms in their possession. The firearms specific were handguns, one of which was a ghost gun with no serial number and a high-capacity magazine. Omar Gaines, 18, on the Bronx, was carrying a 9mm Keltec handgun, and David Owens, age 20, of the Bronx, was armed with a model P80 ghost gun loaded with a 33-round high-capacity magazine. The 2 females were charged with assault. The remaining male was let go by police. The driver, whose name has not been identified, was taken to Jacoby Hospital in the Bronx with non-life-threatening injuries. Alright, so let's get into some news from Queens. So, first up, video shows suspect who violently attacked a woman at a subway station. So here we go. This happened back in May. Detectives in Queens need the public's help in finding the man who violently attacked a 41-year-old woman during a recent encounter at a subway station. This incident took place at 1:45 a.m. on May 30th at the Jackson Heights Roosevelt Avenue station on the E, F, M, and R lines. According to law enforcement sources, the suspect, who police identified as Manuel Gonzalez, approached the victim on the platform and engaged her in a verbal dispute. So we do have a brief video of it. The argument then turned violent, police said, when Gonzalez grabbed the woman by the hair from behind and pulled her to the platform floor. Yep, so there we go. That's the video of it. After knocking her down, Gonzalez allegedly punched her in the face and began choking her. The attack ended with a Good Samaritan intervened and pulled the suspect off the woman. Seconds later, Gonzalez boarded Brooklyn-bound Coney Island F train and fled the scene. Officers from the 110 Precinct and the Transit Bureau District 20 responded to the incident. EMS rushed the victim to nearby Woodhill Hospital, where she was treated and released. Police described Gonzalez as a man with a medium complexion and a medium build, believed to have been between the ages of 30 and 35, standing 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighing 160 pounds. He has a beard and short-cut dark hair. Gonzalez was also last seen wearing a New York Mets baseball cap, a blue hooded sweatshirt, black jeans, and sneakers. So, by the way, that is accurate information because we just saw the video and it appeared the suspect was in fact wearing a New York Mets hat. So, that's definitely a Mets hat. I could tell up close that is. Now we're going to move on to Woodhaven, where a man has been sought in a home invasion robbery. Police are searching for a man in connection with the July 8th home invasion robbery in Woodhaven. Authorities said the suspect pried open a rear window to gain access to a private residence at Jamaica Avenue and 88th Street at 9:40 a.m. on Thursday, July 8th. Once inside, the suspect, who police described as a man who was believed to be 50 years old, with a medium build and a shaved head, snatched $2,500 from a bedroom. At that point, the victim said a 33-year-old man approached the thief, who punched and kicked him, according to authorities. The suspect then fled the scene. EMS arrived and transported the victim to a nearby hospital, where he was treated for bruises and lacerations to his face. We do have a video of the incident, and it appears that the suspect was last seen wearing a black shirt and black pants. So, yes, this is Jamaica Avenue and 88th Street. So I know what this is. Not too far from Woodhaven Boulevard. Let's see if we can find anything else. Let's see. Ooh boy, that's not good. Oh, look at this. Shooting in Elmhurst. So I'm just going to take a look to see what else I can read. Let's see what else. Alright, so I think we got everything we needed. Sticking to transit news. Woman sought in 4th of July assault at Jackson Heights Transit Hub. Police from the 110 precinct in Corona in Transit District 20 are searching for a woman in connection with an assault that happened at the same subway station we just talked about. You just cannot make this stuff up. This happened at Jackson Heights Roosevelt Avenue Station. It happened on Sunday, July 4th. The woman approached the 66-year-old woman on the northbound E-train platform just before midnight and proceeded to punch the victim into the safety change between cars on a subway that was stopped inside the station. Well, I got a bad feeling this woman was probably coming home from watching the fireworks. EMS responded and transported the woman to Queens General Hospital in Flushing for an observation to her knee and swelling to her ankle. Wait, why would they take the victim to General Hospital in Flushing? That doesn't make any sense. NYC Health Hospital Elmhurst is right down the street. That doesn't make any sense. So we do have a video of the incident. So at least they have a suspect that they are looking for. We'll say that's kind of suspicious that she wasn't dressed for the weather. Kind of suspicious if you ask me. You know, another thing is they could have also taken this person to Woodhall Hospital. It's not that far from Jackson Heights. It's only about a 25-minute drive. Okay, so they have her on video wearing a gray hooded Adidas sweatshirt and blue jeans. She was wearing a dark backpack and flip-flops over white slacks. Police described the woman as Hispanic, 25 years old, and 5 foot 3 inches. Okay, next up in Jackson Heights, we have a slashing attack. The NYPD is looking for investigating an anti-gay assault in Jackson Heights on Tuesday, July 6th. 34-year-old man got into a verbal dispute with an unidentified man just after 3 a.m. in front of 37-55 77th Street, when he was suddenly slashed in the face with an unknown object causing a laceration on his left cheek. The assailant then shouted anti-gay statements to the victim before fleeing on foot in an unknown direction, according to the NYPD. EMS responded to the scene and transported the victim to Elmhurst Hospital, where he was listed in stable condition. The assailant was seen on surveillance camera and is described as a man of medium build with short black hair and was last seen wearing a white collared shirt, black pants, black sneakers, and was carrying a black Adidas bag. So there you go. Right there. We got 2 more, and then we're going to get into some shooting numbers. Queen teen shot to death in Elmhurst. Queens teenager died of his injuries after he was shot in Elmhurst on July 7th. According to police at 4:25 p.m., the NYPD responded to a 911 call regarding a man shot outside of 95-35 40th Row. Upon their arrival, officers found a 17-year-old Eduardo Hernandez of Corona with gunshot wounds to his torso. Hernandez was taken to nearby Elmhurst Hospital, when sadly he was pronounced dead. No arrests have been made and the investigation is ongoing. So I just want to mention that this is literally around the corner. I looked up this address, just double checking it. Yeah, this is literally around the corner from the Junction Boulevard 7 train station. I mean, you can't just mind your own business and then all of a sudden somebody just has to open fire. I mean, that's just very alarming. Okay, so last story. Police are searching for two men who broke into an electronics store near LaGuardia in June. Police from the 115th Precinct are looking for two men who broke into an East Elmhurst storefront and made off with sound equipment. The suspects approached Astoria Downs at 80-13 Astoria Boulevard near the southwest corner of LaGuardia Airport at 3:15 a.m. on the morning of June 22nd, and used the tool to break open a security gate. Once it was open, the two men entered through the front door and removed multiple audio speakers and electronics from inside the store. The duo was caught on video surveillance from inside the shop. One is a light-skinned man wearing a black hoodie and dark-colored boots, and the other is a dark-skinned man in a white hooded sweatshirt. Okay. So lastly, before we wrap this video up, let's get into some crime numbers. Shootings and murders in the city decreased in June of this year compared to last, but crime as a whole increased thanks to statistics that were released last Tuesday, July 6th. The city saw 33 murders in June of 2021, a decrease of 23.3% compared to the 43 murders the city saw in June of 2020. And overall shootings decreased by 19.5% from June of 2020, with 165 incidents recorded compared to 205 last year. So, index crime saw a 3% increase, owing to a large rise in thefts. Grand larcenies increased by 32.3% compared to last June, with oral thefts increasing 31.2% and robberies by 16%. Rapes were up 10% compared to last year. So, this is very alarming. 2021 has seen a 12% increase in murders in the city compared to 2020, with 212 so far compared to 189 at the same time last year. Shootings overall have increased by over 40%, with 718 incidents taken so far in 2021 compared to 503 at the same point in 2020. And sadly, it says here that this is the worst number of homicides in New York City since 2011. 468 murders and non-eligible manslaughters took place last year, compared to a 2017 low of 292. In turn, crime became one of the defining issues of the mayor's race between Democrat Eric Adams and Republican Curtis Sliwa. The department made 361 gun arrests in June, a nearly 100% increase over the same month last year, as the cops attempted to stem gun violence and the flow of illegal guns into 5 boroughs. Plus, the federal government last week announced, in conjunction with President Joe Biden, that they do want to address the nationwide surge of gun violence. In fact, later today, New York City Democrat mayoral nominee Eric Adams is expected to meet with President Joe Biden in Washington, D.C. to discuss the nationwide rise of gun violence. NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea said last week, NYPD is also putting resources into police alleged gangs. Roughly half of the shootings in the city are gang-related. He said that the NYPD has conducted several large-scale gang takedowns in the last month, taking 94 of the worst individuals off the street in retaliation to 43 probable acts of violence. So here we go. Here we go. This is the new reality we have welcomed in, folks. Let's read this. 920 and July 11th. An interesting statistic, don't you think? As of yesterday, 920 people received bullets somewhere in their body in New York City from gun violence. For this entire past weekend alone, 5 people were shot and 1 in Queens. Not to mention, we can now add up the number to 7 people, including 2 teenagers that were shot in the Bronx. Manhattan and Staten Island were off from the gun violence. So surprisingly, 2 boroughs were off. So interesting enough. Oh, and not to mention, there was a shooting in Hollis last night. So there you go. According to the NYPD, 795 shootings, there were 920 victims. This is an improvement from last year from 750 for the entire year with 612 shootings. Still, Chicago, led by Mayor Beetlejuice, aka Lori Lightfoot, is number 1 with 2,020 bullet victims until July 6th. Oh man, think about this. I know we have a tall mayor from Park Slope, Brooklyn who acts clueless, but imagine if Beetlejuice was our mayor in New York City. Oh boy. And we almost had a Lori Lightfoot. Her name was Maya Wiley. Thank goodness she lost. According to the New York Governor's office, the Justice Department is working to enforce gun violence in major cities after pleading for help under President Joe Biden. So there you go. Very alarming. Very, very alarming. Okay. So with that, we're going to wrap up this week's update. A lot that had to get into, but the gun violence and the hit and run pandemic still continue. And we have pretty much almost are going to reach the halfway point of the summer coming up. And it's only going to continue to get worse. So with that, thank you all very much for watching. And until the next one, please take care.